me turn to Sam Senator, who is a lawyer and a rights activist. He's the led protest here in the country. Samson, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You've heard the legal conversation around it, and the police has not denied the fact that Nigerian citizens have the right to assemble, to protest, and to show their grievance against government actions or inactions. But in this case, it does look like the government has established its fear, and perhaps the NSAS report, God forbid, what happened in the aftermath of NSAS, for example, in Lagos, happened again. The destruction and the wanton destruction of lives, of property. Never should that kind of thing happen in the name of a protest. But you understand the fear of government. Under the law, what are the possibilities of guaranteeing that, yes, there will be peaceful protests, but how do we make sure that there is no hijack?
Well, thank you very much, Sheon. I think it is worth noting that non-violent protest is a shared responsibility between the state and the protesters. And what I mean is the state has a constitutional responsibility to guarantee safety as well as the security of citizens, because Section 14 of the Constitution is very clear as to the role and the function of a state. Citizens, on the other hand, also have a duty to support the government to ensure that there is political stability and there is no violence. Now, you have a situation where citizens and young people, in furtherance of a right vested on them by the provisions of the Constitution, and in particular Section 40, that deals with the freedom of peaceful assembly, are enforcing their right because the same Constitution also vests citizens with a responsibility to hold their government to account. And so they have decided to use or instrumentalize protest, which is a tool guaranteed by the Constitution for engaging government. And so whether the protest will end in violence or not is a role that both the police, the security agencies, and the protesters have to bear. Now, historically, the people who actually hijack protests and ensure that protests end in violence are not the protesters. And so we need to cut the organizers of this protest some slack, because they have expressed their commitment to ensuring that they exercise this right for protest under and based on the dictates of the law. Now, the state, on the other hand, also now has a responsibility to protect the protesters and ensure that mischief makers, thugs, do not hijack the protest. And that is where I think that we need to reiterate the point that if the protest, is peaceful, it is peaceful because security agencies and the protester decide to work together. And I'm using this opportunity to call on the security agencies, to protect the protesters because they are exercising their constitutional right.
Let me jump in quickly. Yeah. You referenced Section 40 of the Constitution, which guarantee freedom of association and peaceful assembly. But there are those who will argue that there isn't any place in the Constitution where protests and demonstrations have been mentioned. And the police have said, if you are going to do this protest, you have to assemble in a place for easy organization. What do you make of that provision and that argument that the police have said no bonfires, no streets, no marching on the street, just assemble for easy organization? Do you agree with that line that the police is towing?
Well, quite frankly, we must recognize, yes, the police has a responsibility and just drawing from experiences in the past. But I don't think that it behoves on the police to dictate to the protesters the mode and the approach that they use, to ventilate their grievance, because the Constitution is very clear. I think that the protesters and those who are organizing this protest also have a responsibility to ensure that they don't use any tool that undermines public safety, because this responsibility is shared and this right is not absolute. And so it's important. And all through the preparation for this protest, I have not heard where the protesters have said they are going to use either arms or they're going to use tools that threaten public peace or public safety. But they also need to be reminded that they must do so. They must exercise that right within the provisions of the law. Now, the Constitution, does not place any responsibility on the protesters, to request for any permit. And this matter is settled by our courts. If you recall, in 2007, when the ANPP, the former or the defunct, ANPP, led a protest to protest the government policies of the federal government, and then the police disrupted the protest, and their argument in court was that you required a permit, to conduct protest. And the court ruled in favor of ANPP that you do not require any permit, to do what? To conduct or undertake any protest, because the law is very clear, because peaceful assembly, and it's very clear, peaceful, assembly. So I think that the protesters, need to defend their rights, by restricting themselves to the provisions of the Constitution and not employ violence as a tool, because across the world, violence is not a tool. And I really want to cut the protesters some slack, because they've not said that they are going to do what? To instrumentalize violence, or they are going to burn down government institutions or public or national asset. They've not said so, and I want to give them the benefit of doubt. However, what the police needs to do, and based on the rhetoric coming from different stakeholders, is to protect this protest.
Samson, quickly, I'd like to get this. Sowore, who is a presidential candidate of a political party in the 2023 elections, is one of those who have been leading this protest. There are those who will say this is now politically motivated. Now, for a government who spent about just a year in office, does he have the right to then go to the street and protest when those who gave the president a mandate are waiting patiently for him to deliver? There are those who argue in that right, and there are those who will say this is purely, totally backed. And then the DSS had said they've identified those who are financing and funding this. What do you make of that, if this is toned and tagged as a politically motivated protest? The legality of that, is it questioned, though?
Protest is political. The big question is whether it is partisan. Because this is citizens' action. This is a citizens' action. It's actually a political engagement where citizens are engaging the state and they are ventilating their views. So there's nothing wrong if this is political. The big question is whether this is actually partisan. And Sowore isn't, to the best of my knowledge, he's not the only one leading this protest. There are other citizens who are part of those who are organizing this protest. The gentleman who is there in the studio, he has also told you. And so there are people. So the big question is, why are these citizens protesting? Those are the key questions. And what government needs to learn, it needs to talk with young people. Currently, it is talking at young people, but it's not talking with young people. And this is why these young people are leveraging protests to demand a better bargain, and is what addresses and improves the social conditions of Nigerians.
Thank you so much, Samson.